Joining us, MS Now political analyst and Democratic strategist and pollster Cornell Belcher, and co-founder of Crooked Media and host of Pod Save America, former Obama speechwriter John Lovett. John, I think this is your first time on the show. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you. Is the party diverse or divided?
Oh, well, it's sort of starting out nicely. Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of attention on what happens in New York because we decided to not have local journalism, and a lot of the reporters and people that pay attention to politics live there. My view on all of this is establishment figures who might be lamenting that some of these people won, in part because they said dumb stuff on Twitter that I think is some combination of idiotic and reprehensible, in the same way that people afforded Graham Plattner an opportunity to explain and grow and apologize for past comments before they were in getting such attention. I think other candidates deserve the same. But more broadly, stop lamenting the fact that people want power and are fighting for the world they want. If establishment figures aren't offering an alternative that's inspiring to people, you can't criticize the DSA into making those people more inspiring, whether it was Janet Mills or some of these candidates in New York. People are not feeling as though the energy is with some of the more center-left figures. That was not always the case, right? Barack Obama is a center-left figure. He is the most popular national figure in politics, certainly of presidents in recent memory. So figure out why you're not offering a viable alternative. And then on the DSA side of it, the DSA is an organization to me that is animated by defeating Democrats. That makes sense. It's a factional fight for what it means to lead the left. But with more power, I think will come more responsibility and understanding that it is both about fighting the Democratic Party to reflect your values, but also recognizing that it is a coalition that runs from Mamdani to Hakeem Jeffries and everyone in between, and that we have to figure out how to see each other as being part of one team.
Yeah, there was a past where there was a very diverse coalition, and there was one party leader that was able to bring it all together. That has happened in our history many times successfully, but we've gotten so mired in everything is national and everybody has to run on the same platform. In recent decades, it's gotten more difficult. Are we turning back toward the old model, Cornell? Would it be wise to turn back toward the old model?
Well, I think you always got to blaze new paths forwards because the electorate is always changing, and look, the politics in America is like a Category 5 hurricane. It tries to tear apart everything you put into it and build. And so it will. To the question about whether the party is divided, Katie, I can make an argument that the party has always been divided, right? I can make the argument that certainly. There was an argument made the party was divided under Clinton. It was divided under Obama. Like the Democrats the party's always kind of divided because it's tough to have a big, diverse coalition, and so you're going to have different issues, and we're not always going to rally around the same 5 or 6 issues. But what I do think you see a through line through voters on the left and Democrats are the values, right? And there's a value proposition. And a lot of that value proposition is around democracy and equality and diversity. So there's a values thread that pulls, I think, the progressives and the socialists and the moderates all together into a big tent. And I think, look, there's a lot of navel gazing about the Northeast Corridor in New York. And I had a friend of mine from North Carolina said they aren't watching any more national news this morning because it's all about what happened in a couple of districts in New York, and the story is different. But whether you're in New York, or wherever you are, you got to meet voters where they are, and successful candidates meet voters where they are. Now, that doesn't look the same as in Macomb County. That doesn't look the same as in East Texas. But I think successful candidates and successful Democrats are going to meet voters where they are, regardless of the districts. And we sometimes read too much into what happens in the Northeast Corridor.
Yeah, I think you're totally right about that, which is why I tried to move the conversation in that direction, having the right candidate for the right district, and then having a party leadership, a leader of the party, maybe like a Barack Obama or whoever ends up coming out in the future, that is charismatic.
Obama's not walking through that door again, Katie.
I know, and that's what I know, like a past version of Barack Obama, who can unite everybody. And if there is going to be that person in the future, is there a single message that can unite the party while the candidates also remain different in their different respective districts on other policy issues? John,
can I go real quickly on this and then I'll throw it to my friend?
Yeah, sure.
Because I want to level set. Because I went through 2000, 2007, 2008, 2006. We were in the same situation then, where this ideal of the party is not united. We need one central figure to unite us. And a lot of people didn't think that was going to be Barack Obama. And so I think we're in the same situation right now, is that we're going to have a primary, and it's going to be a big contested primary with a lot of people running in that primary. And it's going to be a tough, hard-fought primary. But on the other side of that primary, someone's going to have to figure out how you unite and bring together a diverse set of voters to rally around them. And he or she, and it's been he a lot, I hope it's a she, and he or she is going to be well-positioned, I think, in moving toward a general election when they unite a diverse and divided Democratic Party, just like we saw in 2000, 2008.
It certainly would be nice to try as she has not started a war in this country. That would be a refreshing change of pace. John, you were nodding along.
Well, first of all, I just said we've never given a woman a chance to start a war in this country. But sort of that's sad for us. Yeah, look, we were denied a primary. And a lot of the tension, I think, is because we didn't have that big debate. The Democratic Party doesn't have a point of view. It has big debates, and then the leaders that emerge collectively reflect what the Democratic Party stands for. So yes, it will be up to the leaders who are part of that primary to come together, whoever wins, and for the process to be fair and open and transparent so people can trust it. But I do think it's also incumbent on everybody to unite ourselves, right? We don't have to wait around for a leader to tell us about the stakes in this election and why it's so important that we focus on defeating Republicans together. Look, we will have big debates about what the Democratic Party stands for, but we can have a yet another argument about single payer versus a private healthcare system. But if we don't win elections, it's an academic exercise. I think there's a lot that people can unite behind, both positively, but also about, taking on corruption, right? Like defining what we're up against and then using that to figure out what we can all come together. The Democrats, we kind of have a loser mentality. We've lost a lot. We do. We have, and that leads to kind of fractious infighting, inward conversations. A lot of people who are afraid to say what they think because they don't think the voters are going to agree. Maybe they don't trust themselves. Maybe they don't trust the voters. But I think what people see in the energy on the left is people that just believe that they can win and are fighting to win. And I just sometimes I see a lot of I think people that should know better spend a lot of time lamenting the left and not learning from it and figuring out why all that enthusiasm is going in that direction, and it's more than just ideological.
Yeah, but I think you're right about that, and I think it's an astute observation. There are a lot of ideas on the farther left side of things, the Democratic Socialist side of things, the more progressive side of things, that are about lifting everybody up, getting people fair housing that they can afford, universal child care. I mean, all this stuff that you hear on the DSA platform here in New York City is stuff that people broadly want. They want health care, they want child care, they want housing, they want decent employment, they want to feel safe. All of that stuff. I wonder, though, does the Democratic Party have an issue with the perfect instead of the good? Do you have people who are so angry about how things have gone that if their chosen candidate with all of their chosen ideals is not the winner, John, that they stay home? Is there a concern about an apathy problem?
Look, there are people that think that that's part of why Kamala Harris didn't win. I think that that's up for debate. I would say, everyone has a responsibility. I think it was wrong to not support Kamala Harris, even if there were people that had legitimate concerns, really deep moral qualms about supporting her. My view is, okay, but this is the choice, and we all have agency and a duty to the country. But it was also incumbent upon Democrats to make that case, and by the way, to make people who are upset feel heard. And I think there's a lot of valid criticism that Democrats didn't do a good enough job of that. My view of this is everybody, like, you know, Republicans spend a lot of time kind of forgiving their voters and even their politicians and their presidents as if these people are not moral agents. Like the same applies to every person voting in these races and to the politicians who they elect. Like, yes, we should have our big fights and we should have our disagreements and we should hash it out, but we are in a fight to save this democracy from a right-wing authoritarian movement. We have to figure out how to come together and support defeating this Republican majority. And to me, everything is about keeping people's eyes on those stakes.
It's a fight worth having. John Lovett, really good to have you. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
Good to see you.